Yes, guys, I'm Si. Welcome to Cardiff City World. Welcome to this episode of the Breakdown Extra. As we discuss a number of topics, but we're going to be mainly focused on why Cardiff City must add pace as they evolve the squad throughout the summer, and it is in desperate need of an evolution. Also want to hear how you guys found the Legends match this evening. Was it good? Was it fine? A few of the boys sent me some photos and stuff. Heard the football was better than it's been all season, which is just not a massive surprise. But they know how to play football, I guess, isn't it? We're going to talk about some other bits and pieces. There was a story today on Wales Online. Give a bit of context to that, among other things, and yeah, we'll have a good old chinwag for about 45 minutes or so. As always, drop your comments and whatnot. If you're a member, please, or if you're not a member, should I say, please do feel free to join. If we have the extra member show on a Monday, early access to other videos, as well as, of course, you get 24 hours early access to the live show tickets, among other things. We try to give as many rewards and bonus content as we can. There was some behind the scenes videos from the Glenn Lewins event, which the members had last week, which was also quite kind of cool. We just try to reward them because they are what allow us to do Cardiff City content 7 days a week, ultimately. What else have we got? We also got hopefully a new sponsor stroke brand partner for the end of the football season, which is a kind of mix between kind of your normal sort of sports betting, but also fantasy football. We'll have more details on that probably Monday. But obviously we appreciate your support and get involved and stuff like that. So I think for the first initial thing, we have our own private betting, pool where there's prizes and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I'll give you more details on that. So, right. I'm going to start with the story in Wales Online because I had a load of phone calls and texts today from people this afternoon being like, oh, Glenn has said this and that, and they're using this agency. They kind of use a variety of agencies. They use Russell Slade's agency for a lot of analysis and statistics. They've used Sam Allardyce. They've used Mick McCarthy. They've used all these different ex-managers, whatever you want to call them, for different things, consultancy, etc. The reason why I don't think that what using Wasserman is as big a story as what is being portrayed. I'm not saying it's not true by any means, because I do believe it to be that they've had interactions with him, and I'll tell you why in a minute. Like, there was a strong word when Omar Rhys left, that Gary O'Neill was very interested in taking the Cardiff job. He didn't want it for the short term. This kind of for the last couple of games, he would have preferred to have it for a long-term contract and build something. He enjoyed his time immensely down in Cardiff when he was on in loan, and he felt like there was a lot of potential within the squad and the club as a whole. So it doesn't shock me to see us linked with Wasserman because he's one of their clients. And as far as I was hearing after Rhys went, it was kind of, there was three candidates, and it was Warnock, obviously for the very, very short term, Gary O'Neill if they wanted to appoint someone slightly more with the future in mind, and then obviously with what we went with Aaron. I don't think that it necessarily means that Aaron Ramsey's not getting a job by any means, but what I think it's an indication of is that they're exploring their options. But the other aspect of it that you could look at, and I think people are maybe not spotting or not thinking about, is they could be using this agency or any other agency for a range of reasons. One of which is director of football, technical directors, these sorts of roles. They all fall under the same agencies. You also have a club with no manager, but is desperately in need of an evolution in terms of getting players in and getting players out. So if you haven't got a manager at the moment, but you know that you've got X amount of players either out of contract or you want to move them on, who are you going to speak to? Agencies. On the other hand of that, you also have no manager. But if there's players on free contracts, you need to get in there quick and get those agreements in place, because otherwise they will go elsewhere. One such name, Ricky J. Jones, is leaving Peterborough. Was heavily linked with Cardiff in January. For those of you who caught the Rumour Mill podcast that we did for members, and also like that I talked about in the shows, at the time, I had heard from a Peterborough sort of side of things that he wasn't really interested in coming in January, but he would be open to it at least in the summer. Now, will he still be open to it now that we've got relegated? I couldn't tell you. I'd have to go back to that person and have a chat. But he is exactly the type of player that Cardiff City should be looking at. Very experienced League One player, scores goals, creates electric pace, absolutely electric pace. Got a good attitude. He works hard. He's come through the academy system, or he's come through the system at Peterborough. And most of all, he's young. He ticks a lot of boxes. Yes, we need some leaders in there. Yes, we need some more experienced players for the coming season. Of course we do. But we also need some electric pace. We also need some youthful athleticism desperately. So it's not all doom and gloom. And as I said to the people who text me and message me and phone me today, let's just let it play out. And I understand it. I understand why people have no faith in Cardiff City as a football club and organisation. I think there's a meeting with the FAB next week with Mehmet Dalman and Kenneth Cho. So all these different things, there's a lot of moving parts. If they go and make the same mistakes, if they don't make any changes, then they're going to reap what they sow ultimately. And that will be repeating the same cycles probably. Because on one hand, I think it's relatively common knowledge that the job's Aaron Ramsey's if he wants it. But on the other hand, he's saying, I'll only take it if you put these certain things in place and make adjustments to the way the football club is run. So it's more like a professional football club. So if he doesn't get the job, I'd be concerned. Not necessarily concerned because he has or hasn't got the job, but that probably means that they're not making those changes. And I say it's one man. I think everybody's been on board. And I also believe, and Eric's just said that I'd be 100% on board with them if they're using Wasserman to select a director of football. That's slightly less time critical. And I wouldn't think our board would have much idea to go for, who to go for. Yeah, and I mean, unless they've got a very specific idea of who they want to be director of football, then of course using someone with the reputation of Wasserman makes a lot of sense. What I would say with a director of football is the only way I see them having an idea is twofold. Is one, if Aaron gets the job, he might have some suggestions. For an example, an Oshan Roberts or someone like that. Maybe I'm not saying that is a link. I'm just using it as a hypothetical example. Or on the other hand, like I've mentioned before, Stephen McPhail is building a good reputation for him in doing a similar job over in Ireland at the moment and has been for the last couple of years. He knows the club. He's got tremendous contacts within the Premier League, the Championship, etc. He's also very popular. He's a good talker. He's all these good things that would go with that job. Do you know what else? He's got a very good relationship with Aaron Ramsey as well. So there's all these different things to consider. But the point I was making is, if the club have a plan for director of football, whether it was a Stephen McPhail and Oshan Roberts, whoever, that's fine. If they don't really have an idea and they've got a short list of 1 or 2, 3 managers and they're like, not quite sure which direction we're going to end up going in, then I think it's interesting. So I can tell you, I can't tell you with certainty. You can't say anything with Cardiff City certainty, but if the club wants stuff out there, they'll put stuff out there. I just think it's comical that not comical, but like people get so upset like really, really quickly without thinking it through. And in my opinion, based on the conversations that I've had, I don't necessarily think that it's a guarantee that a Wasserman's been used to select a manager. Now, I could be wrong and things might have changed, but it is what it is. I don't think it's the worst idea, as Eric said, if they're using it to select or look into their options for director of football or a technical director or just a. Do you know what I would prefer to see rather than just a director of football? Is I'd actually like to see a football operations team with a few players in there. So it's like it's one of those where you have to wait and see how it sort of plays out. I don't think the club will hang around too long in terms of getting a manager appointed and getting stuff in place, because I don't think they can. Ultimately, I think they need to move pretty quickly and get it sorted, because apart from the operational thoughts behind that and getting moving and those free transfers that we've discussed and all the different things that we've been discussing over these past few weeks, you've also got to look at it from the other side. If you want to attract players, you want to get those free transfers, you got to have a manager in place, and you got to have you got to have a structure in place to be able to do that before they go elsewhere. So I don't think we have the time to kind of just wait around and see. It'll be very, very interesting to me to see how it progresses over the next week or so, I think, because I think that's when we might see those changes and tweaks implementing, if they end up doing them. My worry, which is always the same worry, is that the board and the club will have these ideas about we should go with this manager or we should go with this guy as director of football, and we should have this guy in charge of the technical director, and this guy is the part of join the recruitment team, and now we've got all these great ideas to have a football operations team, only for it to all fall apart when it gets put to the man who makes the decisions. Because I really believe that's been the biggest problem over these past few years, is every time these ideas and these proposals get to the top, they get shot down. And that shooting down of those ideas kind of left us where we were, because we stuck with Omar Rhys for probably too long, where he may or may not have lost the players in some ways. They certainly weren't playing like they were playing for him. And I think, could that have been a different story if we had those things in place? I think it's definitely a possibility, But there's a few candidates around which I don't hate in terms of the manager side of things. I wouldn't say I was like, there's not any. Is there one which really like it sticks out and I'm like, yes, that's it? Like, I am quite excited by the Aaron Ramsey one. If we put and there's always a big if, there's always like a but. If we can put the right people around him in terms of the coaching staff and give him someone experienced to bounce off, then I think that can be it can be a very good appointment. I think it can be a very progressive and exciting appointment for the next few years. I look at a Gary O'Neill. I think that would be a real statement of intent to go and get a manager who was last managing in the Premier League, did very well at Bournemouth. So I think that's a bit of a statement of intent. Or do you go with more of like the League One proven guy? So like maybe a Des Buckingham. Do you pay out like Nathan Jones's contract? They're all interesting potential appointments to me. But then on the other side of things, I think if you like all of those appointments, I think have pros to them for different reasons. I think you could make an argument for all of those people I just mentioned as an example, and others. But like, to me, if they appoint any of those people but don't adjust how they do things above the manager, I really think that's problematic. There was a question Right. Graham just said, have you heard any truth that Arena Motors turned down a contract? With the greatest of respect, mate, and I never do this. I never, not, I will leave that for him to explain as and when he wants to, mate. It's not really for me to discuss, but I have heard same as you have, I would imagine, you know, but I'm not going to touch that really. I'd rather him have the opportunity to explain or not explain, or, you know, go and discuss his own decisions. Lewis says, really worried it's going to be the same old, no structure. And yet again, Tan gets an agency and once again, and he has the final decision. Yeah, mate, as I said earlier, I think it's one of those, isn't it? Whereby I fully understand why people are concerned. And I'm concerned as well. Like, I was speaking to a friend of mine earlier and saying, like, you know, for the last few weeks, I've been hearing like this, oh, they're going to do it. They're going to finally pull the trigger. They're going to make this structural change. And Ramsey will probably be a big part of that because he's, you know, that's what he sees it and he wants it and blah, 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 if he wants the job and all this sort of stuff. But like, I see stories like that and I'm like, oh, it's going to be the same old. But as I said, just because they're using Wasserman doesn't mean they're using Wasserman to look for a manager. So we can hope. JT says, Gary O'Neill will be a dream. Ramsey be a nightmare. Ramsey will be good if they put the right people around him. If they don't, then I agree. It's such a risk because he's inexperienced. Jonathan says, Nathan Jones, we can't afford him. So on that, I tend to agree with you. Like I do. But then I look back over there, like the last couple of Januaries, and when Vincent Tan needs to find money, he does. Like, but it's always for players. So like he found a couple of million for Dye Turnbull, for Yusuf Salic, for these players. He finds money when we don't seem to have any. But he never wants to do it for a manager. And it's puzzling, isn't it? Now, is that because he clashed with Neil Warnock? Is that because he clashed with Malky Mackay and you had the Moody stuff with the director of football? And does it all kind of go back to that? Like, if it is, and it does go back to that, it's kind of like, get over it, like, for God's sake, because that's really cost us over these last few years. I'm not as much on the Nathan Jones train as some other people are. I can see some benefits to it. But for the money that it would cost, I'm not sure that that's the right way to go. That's just my opinion. I do have a video coming out probably Tuesday, which I'll give you a little glimpse of the thumbnail now. 5 managers that may be the real deal for Cardiff City, where we'll have a real deep dive into the managers who maybe, or 5 managers, like a short list, that may or may not be a good choice for Cardiff City. I would ignore the people on the thumbnail necessarily. That's just a pretty thumbnail. It's not necessarily the managers that will be on the short list, but they'll certainly be considered on the for the audio listeners. On the thumbnail isn't me, nice pretty face, Slaven Bilic, Nathan Jones, Ruben Sellers, and Aaron Ramsey. But as I say, they are not necessarily on the short list. I'm sure some of them will be, but yeah, it's an interesting one. Dave TDS says, do you think if Rhodri got a coaching role instead of Rhys and then became manager, he would have kept us up? James Rhodri is it's really tricky because he had a difficult time at Newport, and sometimes I think, you know, like we've discussed before about players, sometimes they can go to one club and they look like, I'll use Anthony as an example. He's been playing for Manchester United. He looks like he's never played football before. He's that bad. He goes to Real Betis and suddenly the pace of the game, the city, whatever it is, the fans, everything just feels right to him, and he looks like a different player. And this is the same. Any player, any club, any manager, any coach. One club, you can look one way, you go to a different place, and it all fits, and it's just the right place for you, for your family, everyone's settled, and suddenly you're able to go and do a much better job. Is James Rhodri maybe one of those people who's not made to be a number one, but is number 2. Like everybody, and when I say everybody I've ever spoken to about James Rhodri from either the FAW or Cardiff system or ex-players, they all say is absolutely top draw coach, top draw. And there was a lot of people who were very, very disappointed from within the club and the group when he was all set to become the assistant manager to Errol Bullitt, and Errol Bullitt put the kibosh on that and brought in Omar Rhys, which is obviously turned out to be very, very ironic. Would Errol Bullitt have survived if James Rhodri had come in as his number 2? I don't know. Like, you can't ignore what happened with Rhodri at Newport, but then equally you can't ignore his reputation as a manager and as an assistant manager and as a coach. I think, for instance, if Aaron Ramsey was to get the job, I think there would be at least discussions about bringing him into the coaching staff. It's frustrating, isn't it? But yeah. Anon says, rinse, repeat, same nonsense from the club. Yeah, and I think ultimately, right, because it's been such a long period of them doing the same thing and expecting different results, it's difficult to give them the benefit of the doubt. It's difficult to go, let's just see how it plays out. Maybe this time will be different. But it's like, as football fans, it's like bred into you, innit? Like, because you want your club to do so well. We all want Cardiff City to turn the corner. We all want Vincent Tan to realise, like, come on, don't be so stubborn with this director of football stuff. I don't even think it's just as simple as just put a director of football in there. I think they need a proper daily football. They need people at the football club on a daily basis who are involved and talking to the manager and the coaching team, and they got their finger on the pulse of what's going on at the club. I just don't understand it. I've never really understood it. Lewis says, I won't be surprised if we're still waiting into July to find out who the manager is with these clowns. Yeah. And again, it's very difficult to give them the benefit of the doubt. It just is. Jeff says, Gary O'Neill has been punted for the job. So has Steven Gerrard, while Buckingham has drifted. Mate, the bookies with Cardiff stuff of late, like last few years, have been way off. Errol Bullitt wasn't even on the short list. I would be absolutely and thoroughly devastated if Steven Gerrard became the next Cardiff City manager. I would be absolutely devastated. I can't even begin to put that into words. It's like, it is what it is. They should have. Do you know what, though, right? You imagine everything which has gone on at Cardiff City over the years since, since the rebrand onwards, but you could go back. Imagine you had like a series like the Welcome to Wrexham series following all the behind the scenes stuff with Cardiff. It'd been box office, because it's never boring. It's just chaotic and unorganized. But look, you can't. On one hand, I get it. Like, I get it. And I've got no faith that they'll do it at this point, because we've waited so long for them to make these adjustments. But on the other hand, I think people just jump on every little thing because they're worried. And you've got to just let it play out a little bit. Like, the playoffs haven't even been completed yet. Like, just let it play out and see. David Wagner's one who's been mentioned. So I think our retained list will be out next week, if I was guessing. I don't think there'll be many shocks on there, if I'm honest. I think most people kind of know what's what. So initially, tonight's show was going to be a video rather than a live show, but I have been feeling rough as hell today, so I decided I was going to do a live, because then I didn't have to edit it and do all that stuff. So, excuse me. But I wanted to talk about Cardiff's need to evolve that. Well, we've talked about evolving the squad. I wanted to be a bit more specific tonight and talk about the need for pace. I think Cardiff City lack a lot of, or quite a few attributes in terms of the squad, and we've been overrun a lot in midfield, for instance. I think we lack a bit of athleticism and physicality. But tonight, I want to talk about, or certainly for the next sort of 20 minutes or so, I want to talk about the need to inject pace into this group. We need out and out pace. And I think if you get the right manager in there, you'll need it even more. Like, you look at the way Aaron Ramsey was trying to set up with Chris Gunter, with the wingers on the touchline, literally. All right, I see what you mean, Jeff. Sorry, mate. Wayne Rooney as well. Steve Gerrard. Like, they had the wingers on the touchline. They want to stretch the pitch and they want to use that as a weapon. And it is a great way to play football. It's probably the most effective way to play football, especially, I think, in those lower leagues, is getting those kind of like, get the wide players wide, have a nice, strong, structural midfield, and then a big man and either a number 10 or a little man up front. Just go back to basics. You know, how many of the ex-players that we've spoken to on a Wednesday this season have said, when things are going badly, just go back to basics. Make yourself difficult to beat, difficult to score against, and use things like pace, running down the channels, and then play your football in the final third. Simple on paper. So, for me, there is a few options. And look, I'm not going to cover all of them in this video. I'm going to just discuss a few that I think would be quite interesting options. And I made mention of one earlier. Ricky J. Jones, I think, could be a fascinating one. He's been announced he's leaving Peterborough in the summer. He's very familiar with League One. Electric pace. Can play through the middle, can play wide, can even play as a 10, can play as a right or a left midfielder, as well as an out-and-out winger or forward player in that sort of 4-2-3-1 system. Has the stats to back it up. He works hard. So for me, I really believe that is a no-brainer if he wants to come. The problem we will have is that we've been relegated, and there'll be championship clubs who are looking at him. So it'll be selling the project to him, which, again, if you've got a real good director of football or a real good football operations team, they can do a lot of that selling. If you've got a real decent manager in there who's got those connections and got respect in the game. You know, Aaron Ramsey hasn't got the managerial body of work, but he has an incredible reputation in the game, so maybe that can help with selling the project. You know, Gary O'Neill has the Premier League manager type thing, so it is what it is. But I would really like to see. Yeah, I've tried, mate. Jonathan, on that, I have tried, mate. Yeah, I think he likes doing his own stuff, mate. It is what it is. I will keep trying, though. So Ricky J. Jones, for me, as people who've watched the channel for a while will know, him and Poku from Peterborough are two, which I said we should have tried to get last summer. Both score goals, both create a lot for their teammates, and they're both lightning quick. So for me, that is an absolute no-brainer. Is an interesting one for you. In the thumbnail as well. But I think Sorba Thomas wouldn't be the worst signing for Cardiff. And I know some people will say, oh, no, I don't know about that. But, like, had a decent season this year, really, in terms of appearances. Like, I think we've seen what he can do for Wales. And I think he surprised a few, maybe proved a few doubters wrong when Bellamy named him in that first team. You know, hasn't played loads of football out in France, but he's made a good 20-odd appearances this year. He's quick, skillful, good on the ball, creates, hard worker, is very versatile, can play a range of positions, can even sort of slot in as a wing back if you need him. Don't think that would be the worst signing. Will be very interesting what level he goes to. Like, does he go to a championship club? Does he go elsewhere? Does he stay with Huddersfield? It'd be fascinating to see, because obviously he's gone out and played for Nantes for a season in Ligue 1. Was that because Huddersfield couldn't afford his wages, or he wanted to play at a high level? It'd be interesting. I think he could be a decent signing, though. But I think someone just said in the comments, what we need is, Cipriano from Peterborough as well is 23. He's a leader, absolute leader. He's like, I can't see us signing one player from Peterborough, but let alone 3. But if you could somehow get Cipriano, Poku, and Ricky J. Jones out there, that what 3 signings they would be. Yeah, and Non said we need a modern day Craig Noon, someone who can carry the ball. And that's actually why I thought Manswerk really did a good job for Cardiff this year, is because he was able to carry the ball. Ball carriers take the pressure off the defense. Now, Sivert Manswerk was probably finding a bit of fitness, and he's getting up to speed, and unfortunately it's very unlikely that he'll be back next year. But players who can carry the ball are absolute game changers. If you just look at the games yesterday night in Europe, you had Amad Diallo come off the bench and change the game for Manchester United. You had Kuleveski for Tottenham. Those ball carriers, they not only can they create and they can do something out of nothing and they can beat a man, which opens up the play, but they also take the pressure off the defense. And I think we have not got enough people who have that electric pace and ball carrying ability. I think, like Ian Ashford is a really intelligent player. And I think that he can do, he can carry the ball, but he hasn't got that electric pace to get away with it. Yeah, Jeff, you say about Luke Pearce, mate, but he's just hasn't been able to transfer what was a pretty impressive cameo for the first team in the EFL Cup into form elsewhere. And unfortunately, as seen with Rocco Simic, you've got to get that form in the games you're playing, either on loan or in the under 21s, and then it's just getting the opportunity. And even if you have those goals, as Rocco Simic did, you don't necessarily get the opportunity. But Luke Pearce is 20 now, so he'll be looking to play first team football, whether that be at Cardiff or elsewhere. He is quick and he does score goals, but it'll be interesting what goes on with him now. The reason why I think I would ask the question about Sorba Thomas, I can't find the comment now. Someone said that he'd probably fancy a club higher than us. I don't disagree with that, but particularly if Aaron Ramsey was the manager, I would be asking the question because of the Welsh connection. Sorba Thomas is very popular with Craig Bellamy. Craig Bellamy and Aaron Ramsey are very close. So if that is a workable move, then crack on. You've got to use your contacts and your relationships to get players in. But Cardiff have to get pace in. And I look, Salic is your guy. If Salic, assuming we ain't going to sell Salic for any sort of money, I believe that he's going to be the guy. And I think we'll most likely play like a 4-2-3-1, depending on who the manager is, with a number 10 behind. And that kind of takes me nicely into this now. So Lewis says, question for you, any chance we'll keep Ruben? It is difficult, mate, because I see so much criticism of Ruben Colwell. Some of it's warranted, some of it's over the top. But ultimately, I'm 90% sure that he will go elsewhere and absolutely tear it up, and we'll be looking at it going, why have we sold him for next to nothing? I'm almost certain of it. Another good one for me would be, Isaac Davis, I think, is exactly what we need. I would really like to see us go with like Isaac on one side, a really, really pacey winger on the other side, Salic up front. I would like to have Ruben, and then maybe interchange Key and Ashford in the 10 now and again. But the midfielders is where I want to see a bit of a change as well. I think Alex Robertson will probably go. You've got Joel Colwell to come in. That's a good start. But I would like to see us bring in someone like a Cipriano from Peterborough, someone who's a genuine leader, but also someone who's got the skill set to transform the things that we're missing in the midfield. And I know people saying just play Joel Colwell instead of Ruben. Joel Colwell is got all the potential in the world to be a great footballer, but it's going to take him time to settle in to the first team. It's going to take him time to get up to speed. Whereas you get the right players around Ruben and give him a run of games, he'll tear it up in League One if he stays. Dan says if Tanner sticks around, he'll be key for us. But whispers are he may go. Yeah, that was what I heard. But well, it's slightly not confusing, but it's slightly. I think it's more of a if a bid comes in, then we might let him go. But if a bid doesn't come in, I would, he's happy to stay, if that makes sense. I do think that Kean Ashford will be one of the two kind of number 10s who we'll have next year. I don't know if I really like him in the 10. I think he's quite clever. And I'm not sure that he's got that electric pace that we want in the wide positions. I also really like Isaac Davis. We just got to keep fit. Got to keep Isaac. If we can keep Isaac Davis fit, he's exactly what we need. Pace, power, skill, scores goals, creates goals, presses high, everything you want in League One and in the way we were looking to play. But I agree with that. Anon, he says, issue is with Ruben, he's never had a proper manager come in and coach him. Bellamy doesn't pick him, but by God, the player he'd be if Bellamy was with him day in, day out. 100%, mate. For a start, he'd be playing as a number 8, and he'd be playing that role every single day. I do think he'll go elsewhere at some point, and I think he'll absolutely tear it up. Dan says, so what happens to someone like Kean Atete? Is it between him and Simic in pre-season to be our second choice striker? Not necessarily, mate. I think Kean Atete, I think we only extended his contract so that we were able to send him on loan, really, being honest. And Simic is a puzzling one because, in my opinion, when he was throwing his shirt in to the crowd and in that last game of the season, you can read into it what you want. But either way, I think he knew that by doing that, it was going to draw attention to himself. Did he want to draw attention to the point that he should have been given a go? And if he did, is that the way to get the right attention? I'm not sure. There's been questions about his temperament. All these things will have to be taken into account. And one of the reasons why I'm leaning towards Ramsey is because a new manager will give all of these players a fresh start. And in my opinion, some of the players, and this is not a Simic, this is just some of the players in that squad, they've had enough chances now. It's time to move on. We need to evolutionize this squad and move on from certain players. But, we need to build around your Dylan Lawlers and your long-term Joel Colwell. But I just hope people give Joel Colwell time, because my worry is I've seen a lot of comments on social media, sell Ruben, just put Joel in. And it's like, they're in two different parts of their journey. One's a lot further along, one's older, one's bigger. There's a big difference in the physical stature. Yes, you speak to people, Joel Colwell, from ability-wise, is much more, not much more, but he's highly rated, higher rated than his brother in some aspects. But he's nowhere near Ruben's level at the moment, and people need to be patient. And I see so many people just saying chuck him in, and like the other side of it is, look, he is an exceptionally talented footballer, and I'll be not shocked whatsoever if he's starting by the end of the season. But like, you've got to give him time to bed himself in. You've got to give the manager time to work with him and play, work out where he's going to play, because he can literally play as a 6, an 8, or a 10, and he can even play wide. So like, I think he's an 8, but I'm not the manager, and I'm not his coaches, and I don't work with him day in, day out. So I just look with Ruben. Part of me thinks, not necessarily anything to do with him, in terms of, part of me thinks he'd be better off moving on for his own career now. I think he fast became a scapegoat when Siopis left this season. I think he's easy to blame because he's got that like languid style, but actually, if you look at his stats, he's one of the highest ball winners and workers in the team. For me, if I was his agent and I take all the Cardiff feelings out of it, I don't know whether I'd be telling him, go play for a Southampton or someone who will get the best out of you, because he will go somewhere and absolutely tear it up. But, I am a Cardiff fan and I want him to do well. He's a Cardiff fan, and I think he will do well. I think every player develops at different times. He's not like he's 30, like, just how about we just get behind him and support the team and support the players and get behind him and encourage him to be the player that we've seen he can be in glimpses. I don't know. I don't get it. But yeah, Will Fish is one. There's a few like ones that I really would like to keep. And I mean, most people will not be shocked to hear me say I would really like to see Will Fish stay. Will Fish and Dylan Lawler as a back two or a centre back pairing. I'm quite excited by that. It's very young though. But if you can get like maybe an experienced right back or a couple of experienced midfielders in front of him, I think that's could be a good option, because I think that could be a centre back pairing for the next 10 years. Then if you've got Darland on the bench as well, there's 3 young centre backs, youngish centre backs. And maybe if you can put in like a really experienced centre back with them to help those 3 develop and learn with the right attitude, then I think that could be a positive, Martin says, will the Japanese defender return to Cardiff? Yes, Tsunoda is a real fascinating one. It's like, will him and Simic ever play for Cardiff? Because Tsunoda is like, there's not much footage of him, so you're basing it on like little bits and pieces of what people are saying and speaking about. He by all accounts, there's a few people at the club who quite rate him quite highly. When he came in, they said like he looks like a real good footballer, but he hasn't been able to stay fit and play. Rhys says, Joel played our pre-season at right back, went to Cheltenham, played a 10 and flourished, recalled and sent to Exeter, often played 10 minutes for them at right back again. Yeah, it's bizarre, isn't it, mate? Speaking to those Cheltenham fans, and they said like as an 8 he was excellent, and he was getting man of the match most weeks as an 8 or a 10. He played on the right of midfield as well, but in the central areas it seems to be where he's shone. I just would like to see him, if he's in the first team group, pick him a position and just play him there. Don't be moving him false 9, right back, right wing, like, because he's never going to be able to go on and develop in one role. He's clearly got the ability and the football brain to be able to do all these roles, but he doesn't. Like, let him grow. Dan says, do we see the return of the ever-mentioned Ryan Wintle? I actually think he'd be a very useful League One player, but his heart and mind in it, Cardiff. I've said many times, mate, this season we have to get rid of players, senior players, who haven't been with us for the last couple of years or haven't had the best just attitude and whatever it may be. Like, we've got to get that dressing room sorted. The dressing room's toxic, so let's get that sorted. I'm not saying that's all on him, by the way, or even him at all. I'm just saying there's clearly the senior players within that group have not been able to get a hold of that dressing room in a positive way. So I think it's time for the likes of Ryan Wintle, Perry NG, Callum Robinson, whoever, to say thank you very much. Thank you so much for your time. But let's move on and get some new faces in there with different voices, different attitude, different motivations, different everything. That's not a dig at anyone in particular. It's just, we just need to evolve the bloody dressing room and a changing room and get some, you've got some really exciting young players like Will Spires and Louis Giles and Dylan Lawler and Joel Colwell and Troy Perrott. The list is almost endless with those young, exciting players. So get the right players in with them and let's build something special, would be my idea. But there's a few of them, like Darlin saying he wants to stay. All I would say is, if a player says he wants to stay on social media, does that always mean that that's what he's saying to the club? And I don't mean that about Darland either. That wasn't, it's actually directed at someone else. But yeah, it's easy to say on social media, let's get ready for the new season, and you fans didn't deserve that, and blah, blah, blah. And then go to the football club and say, I think I can play at a higher level. So, it is what it is. But Tucinoda can play left back, left centre back as a 3. Jonathan says, would you have given Turner a go instead of Halberth in the final game? Yeah, mate, I said that in my preview, mate. I absolutely would have given Turner that last game. He's been on the bench all season, trained hard, helped get the keepers ready in the games. I just don't see, there was no harm in letting him have 90 minutes and make his debut. I know they rate Armstrong down in the academy really, really highly, but to be fair to Turner, I think he's been on the bench all season in one way or another. No, that was not a hint about Salic whatsoever. Everything I've heard about Yusuf Salic is he wants to stay. Everything. I haven't heard one person say that there's any inkling whatsoever that he wants to go. That doesn't mean that Cardiff won't sell him if the right price comes in, but he wants to stay. Kevin says, I'm worried we're going to be stuck with a lot of these players due to wages. A full rebuild will take a couple of years at least, I think. At least it'll start this summer. Yeah, I mean, you can move a few out in terms of the ones that are out of contract. I think there will be clubs who will try and pick off some of our players, much like they did to Birmingham last year. So you've got, for instance, I think Preston might come in and try and get Perry and G on the cheap. Fine. I think Wrexham's first choice striker is probably Jamie Vardy. He fits like what they try and do. But so does Callum Robinson. The age and the profile and sort of proven at championship level. They've been linked with him before. And I know some people disagree with me about Callum Robinson. Some people think we should keep him. For me, I just think it's time to move on and evolve and get a different type of striker in. And, I'm sure he'll do very well if he was to go to a Wrexham or elsewhere. But, I know some people disagree, and that's fine. It's all opinions, isn't it? Callum O'Dowd I would keep largely because of his attitude and the way he conducts himself. I think he's a good leader to have in the group. Who else? We've got Gutas, I expect to leave. Darlin's an interesting one. I think he's one that's going to take a bit of time to settle to the British football. And I'm not sure whether people have got the patience these days to let players settle and get used to the physicality. Everyone's singing his praises in the first couple of games, gets injured, comes back, and then everyone's like, he can't do it physically. Bid him off in the summer. And in my opinion, and I've said it before, too many of those players didn't have the right attitude this year. Whether they thought they were too good to stay up or whether they were, I don't know, not motivated, whatever the reasons are, I think, look, that dressing room is not good, hasn't been good enough all year. And then I'll put it this way, it's not the young players who are causing the issues, is it? I don't know what else to say. Martin says, Armstrong's not ready for the first team. No, I agree with you, mate. I'm just saying he's very highly rated. We got to get a keeper in, mate. There's no way we can go into this season with Alnwick and Howarth. If they don't trust Turner to play, then they need to get another keeper in, because I don't think either one of them's good enough. Maybe Alnwick is all right at League One, but long term, I think we need a keeper who's a number one. Graham, I'm going to kind of say the same thing with Rolls as what I said with Rinamoto earlier. Is I think he's earned the right to say what his next moves are himself, you know. But I would judge by the fact that we haven't heard anything, that at the moment he hasn't got anything in place, would be my guess. So I'm going to finish up on this, and I know this is going to piss some people off, but I'm going to finish off on this. Someone who I trust greatly, who speaks to very similar people that I speak to, has just sent me a 4-word text and said, important changes afoot, mate. So that was the 4th word. Sorry. As I said at the very tip-top start of the show, I understand why no one has any trust in this club and has no one belief in this club. I get it. Neither do I. But everything which I've heard for the last month to 6 weeks is that in the summer, there was going to be changes. Just because we're using that Wasserman, or supposedly using this Wasserman agency, doesn't mean we're using it to look for a manager. We might be, but we might also be using it for other things. Going to have to be patient and let it play out. I might be wrong, but it is my belief that the rebuild is about to begin. And hopefully, fingers crossed, touch wood, the rebuild will be from above the team right down to the team, because we need to evolve the football squad, we need to evolve the football structure, and we need to make this club ready to push forward in the next few years, because we've got everything in place in many ways from a facilities point of view. So let's go do something about it. I'm going to answer this one question. Kevin says, what do you think will happen with Chambers? I have no idea what will happen with him in terms of will he stay, will he go? I can only give my opinion on what I think is the situation. He's on big money. I heard the other day he was on more money than Aaron Ramsey, who gets absolutely slaughtered for being on so much money support. But even though he took a huge pay cut to come here, but beside that, it is my opinion, Callum Chambers did very well in midfield last year. But it is also my opinion that you can't afford to have someone on the bench who's on 50 grand a year, 50 grand a week, if rumours are to be believed, or on a big chunk of wage and just be sat on the bench. He can't play centre-back because he gets exposed for his pace. And I think we have to be looking at more athletic and physically more aggressive midfielders. We have to move on. And I don't think you can have a guy on the bench on such big money. And also, I should correct myself, I don't know that he's on 50 grand a week. I'm just saying he's on a good wage. And I just not sure that we can justify that. Same with Callum Robinson in some ways. Can we really justify paying one of the biggest wages of the squad to a player who's largely going to be on the bench? I'm not sure we can. And that's why I believe that if someone comes in for him, I'd probably move him on. It's slightly different in Aaron Ramsey's case, because I think you could give him like a pay-as-you-play deal and have him as a coach. He might be the manager. I think there's other things to be taken into account with that. But yeah, we shall see. Let it play out, and we'll just see how we go in it. Keep the faith. It's one of them. I know it's frustrating. I know it's hard. I know there's lots of people saying lots of things. What I will always try and do, and what I try to instill on everyone who's on the channel, is we try to be fair and we try to look at it from all angles. We have got lots of different videos coming out, as well as the live shows over the next few days. The boys will be back. Rhys and Matt will be back tomorrow. I'll be back on Sunday for the breakdown. We have all sorts of videos, 5 managers that may be the real deal for Cardiff City. We've got one on directors of football. We've got a scout report on Charlie Savage. We've got a scout report on Ricky J. Jones. We've got episode 3 of the rebuild. Loads of stuff coming. Make sure you're subscribed, all that good stuff. And please do become a member if you can, because that's what allows us to do content 7 days a week. Welcome to all the new members. Don't forget the member show on Monday as well. And in the meantime, enjoy the rest of your evening. Keep the faith, my friends. And I'll see you in a bit.